Hello! Well, I'm here to have a chat with you about the quantumness of the workplace because it's a very important subject for a lot of people and it illuminates some of the aspects of the working environment that we're not usually kind of given to thinking about very much. So I'm just going to run through a few principles that apply in quantum mechanics and that also apply to the workplace so that we can have a look at how they resonate with each other and what we can do with them. So the first one I'm going to have a look at is the individualism of the person who is in the working environment, dealing with everything that they are made to deal with and internalizing the concepts, the experiences on a very singular level. So the first quantum mechanical principle, if you like, that applies in the workplace and in any community, basically, is singularity. As a singularity, that essentially means that we have a core of self beyond which physics cannot go. And we do. This is a very true thing. We have a core of self, a consciousness,
an ethereal body, an astral entity, whatever it is that is our life force and our mind and all those things that don't actually subscribe to all the atomic components of who we are.
It is beyond the realms of physics as we currently know it. So in that term alone, we subscribe to being a singularity. In the workplace, of course, you've got lots of singularities that are condensed together in one place. And the interactions between those singularities is going to give rise to another very familiar quantum principle, which is entanglement. In classical physics, entanglement, or not quantum physics, this classical doesn't count for this. In quantum physics, entanglement is the instant resonance or reaction between two particles irrespective of the distance between them. You can have a feeling, a mood, an attitude even, that will somehow resonate across the workplace and infect other mindsets without there really being anything directly said. There's a kind of a strange, should we say, force at work? So this force affects people. It makes people feel and think things that belong to the total energy of the workplace. And if that's negative, then it's really bad news, because an awful lot of damage can be done by negativity in a working environment. If, on the other hand, it's positive, that's really good news, because a positive environment is productive, it's energetic, it's innovative.
And it comes together and it makes for continuous improvement.
But before we go there, there's another thing that we all have to put up with, and that is duality. Now, duality comes down to waves and particles. And essentially, we are both.
We are waves and particles.
We're only particle in this particular present moment of time. I've covered this in a lot of other videos on quantumology, but you will essentially find that there is a waveform that collapses into particle format. So as all our atoms and the structures of our atoms exist as waves most of the time, but only in particle format when that wave packet collapses, that means that we are constantly changing as we ride this waveform. We're not the same all the time. We go through various stages in our lives,
and things come in and affect things,
make things happen in our lives, and sometimes make nothing happen in our lives. But essentially, being a wave and a particle at the same time means that we don't recognize that we're a wave. We only recognize that we are particle format. We're solid beings. But in physics terms, we're not always solid beings. It's just one of those little tricks of the light. It's something that gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom, because you realize then that there really aren't any constraints to what the potential is for what you could be. And that draws us into the other thing that really does relate to continuous improvement, and that's uncertainty. You might have heard of the uncertainty principle. Basically, it comes down to purists as a matter of not being able to measure two things at the same time. So, for example, you can't measure where something is and its speed simultaneously. You can measure one thing or the other, but if you know where something is, you don't know how fast it's travelling, and if you know how fast it's travelling, you don't know where it is, because you can't measure two things at once. It's a purist's view of uncertainty. However, there are a lot of things in the natural world that come about because basically uncertainty rules okay. And you could say
that uniqueness
is a product of uncertainty. Every snowflake and grain of sand being unique is the product of the uncertainty taking place in its atomic formation. And that uncertainty seems to be able to make sure that it doesn't repeat itself. So every moment of the day that you experience throughout your life is irrepeatable. It won't be repeated in exactly the same way twice. The tiny little details will always be slightly different from one event to another. And the very last thing that we all have to come to terms with, because we all have to live with it again, is polarity. And we can look at polarity in very simplistic terms of positive and negative, and we can apply polarity in fruitful ways by recognizing how positive and negative energies work and the differences between them. Because there are huge differences, obviously, between a negative environment and a positive environment. And if you know how they work and how they operate, then you're so much better placed to be able to shift all those things that are feeding into the negativity system and replace them with things that start to feed into a positivity system. But you can only do that by transformation, which takes a little bit of time. So essentially, these are factors that apply within the workplace, and it works because people understand the basic tenets of quantum mechanics quite instinctively. It's something that seems to be built into our DNA. So I hope that's been useful, and if you want to get in touch, please do subscribe to the channel, because I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.